Beware, weary travelers, for tonight I will regale you with stories so horrible they will chill your bones. So sit back and enjoy stories of clients from hell. Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome to the underground laboratory where we create robots, aliens, zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. Happy Halloween. It is a night of ghouls and goblins and stories so terrifying you dare not tell them with the lights off. Although, here we are. So what are these stories, and why am I choosing to tell them tonight of all nights? Well, I think you'll soon find out. But while I spin these yarns of terror, I'm going to be doing something equally horrifying. Drawing a character that fits right at home at this time of year. A character so menacing that if you were to encounter him in real life, he would strike fear in your mortal soul. His head, only a skull burning in ember. You might know him as Ghost Rider. So sit back, enjoy, as I tell this tale, if you dare. In my long and illustrative career, I've had many clients. Some you might consider a little odd. I once had a client who manufactured drill bits for the sole purpose of penetrating the human skull in order to allow surgeons an opportunity to operate on the brain. But this story isn't about that client. This story concerns an entirely different drill bit manufacturer whose products were designed to crack safes. Sounds like it's on the up and up to me. So I was approached with this project, a logo design. The client wanted sort of a version of the Arm & Hammer logo, in a sense. Basically with an arm slamming a drill into a safe in order to crack it. I figured I could do the job, so I set to work. I did a number of revisions, to say the least, of this arm holding this drill, cracking the safe, and at first the safe didn't look quite correct, and then the arm needed revisions, and it went on forever. At first he wanted a stylized look of the arm, but then felt that the anatomy didn't come through. So I painstakingly researched the muscular structure of the arm, made sure that it was perfect, but upon presenting it to the client, I found that they had a very different interpretation of what the human anatomy should look like. So I tried to get myself into the brain of this client and find out exactly what they felt it should look like, and rework the drawing over and over and over and over and over again. But it was never enough. It just wasn't what the client had in mind. But who knows what was in his twisted mind? I could only redo the drawing over again, night and day and night. It went on what seemed like forever, until finally it seemed he was happy with it. I was allowed to go to the next stage of the logo design, so I did. Little did I know, a day later I would receive another call from the client. It appeared he had shown the drawing to some other people in his circle whose minds were also twisted, contorted, and disturbed.
And so I received additional feedback and went back to the drawing board again. I wish I could tell you how long it went on for, but my memory has somehow blocked it out of my mind, perhaps to protect myself from the anguish and torture. But let me tell you, it was not pleasant, not at all. But alas, perhaps I have myself to blame, for when I took on this project, it was early in my career and I was young and foolish. But there is a lesson to be learned, so heed my words, young designers, illustrators, creative types. Always have a contract, and when you do, stipulate, perhaps maybe even in blood, how many revisions you plan to allow before adding additional charges. Or suffer my fate, you very well might. I hope you enjoyed that tale. Perhaps you're ready for another. So where do I begin? I suppose we've all had stories of those clients who, even with a contract, decided, maybe I won't pay you what you're owed, and stiffed you. I've had my fair share of those. I've had my fair share of awful, horrible clients. But this next story isn't one of those. The client in this case was rather pleasant. In fact, I can't think of anything negative to say about any of the parties involved. No, this particular story concerns an atrocity of my own design. You see, this is another story that goes way back to the beginning of my career. And I had an opportunity to work on a very high-profile project. This was a storyboard project, and if you're not familiar with storyboards, you will know that they always appear at the most inopportune hours and typically have to be done in very, very little time at all. But such is the case with these types of projects, so I took it on. I had done these before, and I knew I could do it again. But when I was contacted about this job, and yes, I will explain that the parties involved were high profile, as I said. Perhaps you've heard of a little television network called Nickelodeon. And if you haven't, maybe you've heard of Duracell batteries. Well, these two companies had come together to do a television commercial, and they needed it storyboarded out, but as usual, they needed it yesterday. So I set to work. I began doing my sketches. Everything was going according to plan. My contact, the person who hired me, was very happy with all the sketches that I presented to them. But it was getting late, and my typical process of completing these designs is to take my illustrations, my storyboards, if you will, and go to what was then known as a service bureau or a copy store. I would get copies made, photocopies that I would then take and apply color. In this case, it was just black and white washes. But as I mentioned, I was burning the midnight oil, and There was no service bureau or copy store anywhere in sight, not the 24-hour kind. You have to understand, this was a long time ago, and they were very hard to come by at the hour at which I happened to find myself in. This was so long ago, in fact, most people did not own a copier of their own, a desktop printer. They just weren't, shall we say, cost-effective. But I did have one thing that I could use. An old antique known as a fax machine. For some of you younger viewers, you may not even know what that is, but it was a device designed to teleport facsimiles of documents from one machine to another. But it also had a feature in which you could theoretically run your illustration or document through and make a copy. So that's what I did. Back then, these fax machines had a very peculiar paper. It was a thermal type paper that came on rolls. So I printed them out. I cut the rolls and then I applied my grayscale washes to the illustrations. I then did what I would normally do and cut out the shapes of an old tube TV to get an idea of what it might look like on your television screen, the kind of screens that we watched back then. This was before widescreen, of course, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I cut out all the pieces, assembled them along with the dialogue, and then I brought out the foam core. I did what I always do. I took photo tape along the edges, made it perfect, and then I began to apply the illustrations to the board, and I must say it was quite attractive when it was finished. Early the next day, I presented the boards to my contact, who would then FedEx the drawings to Los Angeles, where the ad agency happened to be, and everyone was happy until later that day, or the next day. I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. I got a call from my contact. Something had gone horribly wrong. It seems the chemicals in the spray adhesive I used to glue the illustrations to the board had had a strange reaction with this facsimile paper, and it began to bubble and congeal, and the ink and colors began to fade and gradually disappear. It was an awful mess, a complete disaster. I didn't know what to do. I'd never experienced anything quite like this. Needless to say, the client was not pleased. Neither was Duracell Batteries or Nickelodeon. Suffice it to say, I have never worked for either of those two clients again. This experience has left a black spot on a career filled with otherwise happy and satisfied clients. Sometimes I am reminded of this story and I think to myself, wondering, what could I have done differently? Sure, maybe if I would have had more time, but that wasn't the job that I took on. As I mentioned before, I have no one but myself to blame. But I can say this, I have never made that mistake again. So we've come to another moral, haven't we? What did I learn from my experience? Well, the same thing you learn from anytime you fail. So, young creators, learn from your mistakes. Never make the same mistake twice. And don't dwell on them like I have. Sometimes it feels like therapy to tell these stories, and I hope in some small way they will help you when you have a problem client or a project that just isn't going your way. It happens to the best of us, and for me, these stories become fewer and fewer as I move on in my career, as I learn from all of the horror stories that I've had in the past. In some ways, I feel it's made me stronger. But I'll let you be the judge of that. I hope you'd enjoyed these stories. I hope you've maybe learned something from them and have some takeaway. I also hope you're enjoying the artwork. I had a lot of fun with this particular piece. I don't get an opportunity to do a lot of fan art, but I am a fan of comics, and when I am commissioned to do something like this, I jump at the chance. And I'm happy to say this particular project, this particular job and client were very much a pleasure to work with. I have no complaints. So, here's to you and your future projects. Hopefully they will go a lot smoother than mine, but you never know. You may find a client from hell or a project which is doomed to fail. Hopefully that won't happen. But be on the lookout. Be vigilant, be prepared, and always be ready. And in case I forget to mention, happy Halloween. And take care of yourself. Be on the lookout for shifty clients. They hide in dark, dank places. They come out of the woodwork. You never know when one might appear. In fact, there may be one right behind you.
Well, there you have it. Please excuse me if you can't sleep at night, but sometimes these encounters with clients can be unfortunate. What about you? Have you experienced clients that were terrifying or unpleasant to say the least? If so, I'd like to hear about it. You can let me know in the comments section, and I'll see you later. That is all.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can follow me at Serkworks on social media, and now you can support the work that I do on Patreon. Do you like making comics? Then go to Serkworks.com and pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's packed full of fonts, brushes, templates, and more, and best of all, it's totally free!